What is going on, guys? So it is early November. Last week St. Croix released their new rods for 2022. One of them is the Panfish Series. They redid their Panfish Series line, so I ended up buying one of those. That is what is here. So the plan for today is going to be to unbox this thing. I should have about an hour of fishing time left, so we're going to go try to test it out, and then we'll kind of do a little first impression review of the rod after one day of use. So here it is. I took the top off, but I have not looked at it yet. So let's just go ahead and pull the rod out. Come on. This is a little bit of a longer panfish rod. It's 6 feet 4 inches. A lot of the panfish rods I normally use are on the smaller side, 5'6", 6 foot. So this one at 6'4" is a little bit longer. Let's take this plastic off here. These rods usually come pretty well packaged. There we go. And here is the first look at the new for 2022 St. Croix Panfish rod. So 6 feet 4 inches. This is the light power, fast action. Let me just read you the model number here real quick. PNS64LF. So let's talk about it real quick here. We're going to start here in the butt section and the handle section. Let me go ahead and hold it this way. So nice rubberized cork here on the bottom, and then some cork here on top. Looks okay. It looks to be a small little defect right there, which doesn't look too great on the rubberized cork. Small little imperfection there. That's alright. Then we got our St. Croix logo right there. And then moving up to the handle, I am very interested in this handle because it's a little bit different. If you've watched my previous reviews, I normally complain a lot that when I hold a rod, the threads, when you're from the reel seat, they dig into your palm after a few hours of fishing. It becomes a little bit uncomfortable. This one's a little bit different. So we have cork here on the bottom and top, but this is a very smooth plastic section here. How does this screw in? This does screw in from the bottom, but there are no exposed threads, so this should be pretty comfortable to hold. We'll see what it's like once I put a reel on there and I'm out on the water fishing. It definitely looks different, but I think I'll probably like this a little bit better than a lot of the other reel seats. And we got all our specs right there. Like I mentioned, 6 foot 4 inch, light power, fast action, rated for between 4 and 8 pounds, and then between 1/16 and 1/4 ounce. The Panfish Series logo, which is also a new logo. They redid the logo. And then moving on up here, we have our guides. These are Sea Guide guides. Stainless steel, so they should be pretty light. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them on a 6 foot 4 inch rod, which isn't too bad. I am working here in close quarters, so it's a little hard to maneuver this. The tip seems very light and flexible, a little noodle-like. Yeah, I don't know if this is going to be the best jigging rod. It's a little noodly. Recovers pretty fast though. I will try to show you that once I'm out of here on the water. Maybe I could do that here. Pretty fast recovery. After you twitch it and stop, it comes back to a stationary position pretty quick. Nice brown color, should match a lot of reels, especially a lot of Daiwa reels. I've got this Daiwa Legalis that I'm going to put on there, and it looks pretty good. So anyway, let's get this thing out on the water. We'll test it out, and I'll see you out there. Alright, so we are out on the water. We're going to be going with a 1/32 ounce jig head with a Euro Tackle 2-inch B-Vibe. So this is obviously 1/32 ounce. That's a little bit lighter than what this rod is rated for, but with the addition of the weight of the actual soft plastic, it's probably pretty close to 1/16 of an ounce. So this is a slightly larger presentation than I normally use for panfish. This is also a slightly heavier rod than I normally use for panfish, or at least not heavier, but stronger powered, and it casted that thing pretty well. So no problem in the casting department. Let's reel this in, and then we just gotta wait for a fish. Alrighty, so we are about 10 minutes in here. Couple things, kind of first impressions. Number one, this handle is very, very comfortable and pleasant to hold. Nice smooth plastic, no threads grinding into your palm. So that is a plus. Number two, the sensitivity on this thing. I had one bite from a little largemouth, felt it really, really well. Fortunately, I think it just kind of bit the tail of the lure, so I missed the fish. But that is not the rod's fault. It does cast this little lure pretty well. The longer rod definitely helps with that. And I've been hitting, there's a lot of grasses here. I've been hitting the grasses with the lure pretty regularly, and I am able to feel every time I hit one of those. So sensitivity, pretty good, very comfortable. Now let's try to get a fish and see what this rod, oh, great timing. I was gonna say, let's try to get a fish and see what this rod does with a fish on. He's down in the weeds though. That thing hit pretty well. What is that? Is it a largemouth? Can't tell. What is it? Still can't, is that a Mayan? Or, oh, I think it's a peacock. Yeah, it's gonna be a nice peacock. All right, let's try to land this guy. Yeah, yep, I'm a little bit overwhelmed. It's a light power rod, and that peacock is having its way with me right now. Come on. It's a decent fish on the light panfish rod, but we got him. Alrighty, very, very nice fish on the Panfish Series rod. Certainly not a panfish, so this guy put up a little bit of a challenge, but the rod performed pretty well. So we will let this one go. Nice little release, and let's keep going. Let's keep testing the rod. All right, so one fish down on the new rod. Performed really, really nicely. It is a light power, so I was a little overpowered by that fish, because that's definitely not a panfish, but very, very sensitive. Felt the hit well. The head shakes, I felt well. It was a nice fight, but the rod still performed well. The tip is very noodly, but this rod does have a decent amount of backbone to even pull a fish of that size in. So we got one down. Now let's try to get a couple more and keep testing out the rod. Here we go, fish on. Had a hit, missed it, and I got another hit right afterwards. Nice little largie. Here we go, fish number two on the rod. Little guy, but still put up a nice fight, put a nice bend in that rod. I am impressed though that, I mean, it's not a big fish, but that rod was able to lift this guy over these grasses pretty effortlessly, so pretty good backbone in the rod. All right, so haven't got really too much more over on the B-Vibe swim bait. So I think I'm going to switch lures, and I'll see how this rod performs with something just a little bit different. All right, next lure is this suspending jerkbait from Eurotackle. This is the Z-Spender, so it is in 1/8 ounce, which is right in the middle of what this rod is rated for. Again, it's rated for between 1/16 and 1/4. So we'll see how it handles an 1/8 of an ounce. It sure definitely casted better. And now we'll work it in. Let's see, I have a feeling this is supposed to be a fast action rod, but actually, I was worried because I thought the tip was a little wimpy, but it's not. It's working pretty well. So I like fishing fast action rod tips with jerkbaits just because I feel like it's very, very easy to be able to pop that lure and twitch it, just because it takes very little effort. Like the rod tip does all the work. And I was worried, but this is working pretty well.
There we go. Fish on. Okay. Good size little largemouth. Now, here's the struggle. Can I get him in on this light rod over all this? Let's try. No, I can't because he's off. So I mean, that is the rod's fault, but this is not the kind of fishing that you really should be doing with this rod. If I was going to be fishing this area with some larger lures like this normally, I'd be probably throwing a medium light or a medium, just because I know I'm going to hook up with bigger fish and I need that extra backbone to flip them on over all these grasses. So this, just for this little test run, this is how I'm doing it, but you've always got to kind of match your equipment with where you're fishing, and this is not matched very well. All right, so the sun is setting. I think I'm going to switch to one more lure. I'm going to try something where I've got to actually like jig it a little bit more than that swim bait in the beginning, and we'll see how this rod works with that. All right, so the next and probably last lure of the day is this, what is this thing called? The Trout Slayer from Leland Lures on a little 1/32 ounce jig head. So that swim bait I tried out in the beginning, it was on a jig head, but I didn't really jig it. I just kind of swam it back. So this I'm going to try to jig and see how that works out. Fish on. First cast. Little largie. Let's flip him on up here. Come on, come on. There we go. All right, little largemouth on that little crawfish jig head. It's a light jig head, 1/32 ounce, but it jigged it pretty well. The tip recovered pretty quickly. So we'll get this guy back. I'll fish it a little bit longer, and maybe we could get one more. Here we go, fish on. Ooh, pulled a little bit of drag too. What is this thing? What is that? Oh, I foul hooked. Did I foul hook it? No, he just wrapped himself up. A regularly hooked little largemouth. Alrighty, so another little panfish sized largemouth. We caught a couple larger ones today. This might be the smallest of the day. But nice fish. Put a decent fight on that little light power Panfish Series rod. So we'll get it back, and I think that's going to do it.
Alright, so that is going to do it. Spent about an hour with the new Panfish Series rod, so let's talk about it. Number one, when I do these things, I like to answer two questions. So first is, do I like the rod? And that is, yes, I do like this rod. And number two, and this one's a little bit more important, would I buy it again? So do I think the price is worth what you get out of it? And that is also a yes. So this model retails for $125. I think I paid $112 for it because I got like a 10% off little coupon thingy. So definitely worth $112, $125. I think it is a very nice rod for that. You get a 5-year warranty out of it. So yeah, that's where that stands. But now let's talk about the performance. Number one, love the handle here. Very, very comfortable. No threads to grind into. Very smooth and soft plastic. Center of gravity, I don't think I showed you that yet. It balances very, very nicely. So it is about right there. So if you hold it the way I do, right there, basically the weight is pulling straight down, so very comfortable, not butt heavy, definitely not tip heavy, so that is very nice. It casts really, really well. Even these kind of lighter, smaller jig heads, it's rated for 1/16 at the bottom, but a 1/32 ounce jig head with a small soft plastic casts really well. That's probably because this is a little bit of a longer rod, 6 feet 4 inches. The other ultralights I have, like this is the 5-foot old Panfish Series. This is the 6-foot Legend Elite Panfish Series, so 6'4", just a little bit bigger. can get those lures out there a little bit farther. The blank, right? So this is their SC2 and SC6 composite. You got SC6 here in the butt section, SC2 out there toward the tip. Pretty sensitive. I felt all those little largemouths hit. Also felt when my lure brushed up against some grass, so that was very nice. The tip, a little bit noodly. I was worried about that, but not too much of a problem. These smaller jig heads, this little trout slayer, as well as that, even that B-vibe, I didn't really jig that too much, but it recovered very, very nicely, so you can definitely jig some smaller lures on this. Now this rod's rated up to 1/4 ounce. I don't think I would jig anything even close to 1/4 ounce on this. You're just not going to be able to get the results you need for that, but smaller lures, I think it's perfect. It worked that jerkbait in really, really well. The tip's soft enough where it bends and pulls and you could twitch and work that jerkbait really, really nicely. And the steady retrieve also works really, really well with that. I think it would also be like a good little beetle spin rod, something like that. Maybe some inline spinners. So definitely it does have a fast action, but you can work some, I guess, lures with treble hooks, which you would usually use a more moderate action rod for. I also think this would be a very, very good float fish rod. So if you just float fish with some night crawlers, red worms, crickets, whatever, I think it would be very, very nice for that. So yeah, very, very nice rod. I am very impressed with it, very glad I got it. So I should be fishing this thing a whole lot more, and I'm just impressed. So definitely a buyer. I would definitely recommend this rod to anyone that's looking for just like a nice little bit above an entry-level rod. Because I mean, you could get a lot of cheaper rods than this, but for a little bit over $100, you are getting a very, very nicely crafted rod that performs very, very nicely. So that is going to do it on the St. Croix Panfish series here. Hope you guys liked it, and I will see you next time.